Welcome, everyone, to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your host, Dean Marash. Joining us today is Terry Karges, who's the executive director of Petersen Automotive Museum. But before we get started, I need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by our good friends at CTEC and Wicked Automotive Detailing. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, The SoCal Car Scene, so that you never miss an episode. Hey, let me take a few minutes and introduce you to our very, very special guest, Terry Karges. As the executive director of the Petersen, Terry introduced vault tours, monthly cruise-ins, adult education programs, movie nights, and specialty car events. He has helped to increase overall attendance, creating new events that engage the people of Los Angeles and the global automotive community. Throughout the pandemic, under Terry's leadership, the Petersen has effectively launched digital vault tours, educational virtual field trips, YouTube garage tours, and virtual global cars and coffee events to allow fans to connect with other car enthusiasts globally. Before joining the Petersen, Terry was a senior manager in the automotive OEM motorsports and theme park entertainment divisions, including Disneyland, Marine World, and SeaWorld. I don't think he was in charge of Shamu, I'm guessing. His leadership background with automotive manufacturing firms include Roush Performance, where he spent 17 years helping grow the company into the largest specialty high-performance car brand in the world. There he also managed sales, advertising, new media, web development, and vehicle packaging. Prior to Roush, Terry enjoyed ownership of Karges Sport, where he emphasized motorsports marketing and ran his own race team. Wow. Hey, Terry, thanks for joining us on the SoCal Car Scene.
My pleasure to be here, Dean. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. I know it's a real busy time for you guys. Hey, but before we get into the big news of the week, how did the stars align and put you in a position to have such a tremendous influence on one of the world's most notable car museums and collections really in the world, right?
You know, how do you refer to blind luck or dumb luck? Actually, what happened was that Bruce Meyer, who was the founding chairman of the museum, called a guy named Gordon McCall, who we've had on the show. Gordon's a good friend, and Bruce said, "I need a new director. I want to find somebody new to come in and run the museum." Right. And Gordon said, "Hey, call Terry." And Bruce said, "Oh my God, I've known Terry for years." And so Bruce gave me a call. I came in, we started talking, and a couple of months later, I was the new director of the museum. I had been on the road for so long that, working I worked for Roush for a number of years in out of Michigan, but I never moved there. My home was always in Santa Monica. And so being on the road 80% of the time for those years, I was ready for something of a shorter commute, if you will.
Wow. That's quite a story. I mean, those are some notable names, Bruce Myers, Gordon McCall. I mean, those are kind of some of the who's who of the car world. And it's great to know that they were the ones that kind of helped usher you into this role. And it's no wonder. Now, how long have you been with the Petersen?
I started in August of 2012. Wow. So almost 9 years.
Wow.
And I got to share with you, I was supposed to start on Monday of the second week of August. And so I came in on Saturday, came in Sunday, worked Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, drove up to Pebble Beach for the Concours. And Sunday, I'm sitting in the Henry Ford Ferrari Barchetta getting a trophy up on the stand. I was thinking to myself, this could be cool. We can do this. We can do this.
Yeah, I'm hanging out at Pebble Beach. Yeah, this is going to work great.
But I think that there's been so many lucky breaks. Bruce had decided that it was the 20-year anniversary of the museum then, and that something had to change. And at the same time, David Sidoric, another one of the board members, had decided, agreed with Bruce, something has to change. David found and started talking to architects, and he met a fellow named Gene Cohn, who's a principal in one of the three biggest architectural firms in the country, They happened to be at Villa d'Est, at a show over there, hanging out like all the guys. And said, you have to come to LA and take a look at this building. This building is so ugly, nobody even notices it. So Gene came to Los Angeles and they walked the building, and David challenged him. You have to come up with something that looks or that represents speed and motion. And I think it was not more than 3 or 4 weeks later, Gene came back with a presentation that you would have paid $250,000 for on a study. And we took it, and almost to the line that he had drawn this, or that his people had, we ended up building this building. It was a huge undertaking. We transformed the building, $95 million investment. We gutted it, started over again. But one of the keys to that too was that Peter Mullen was asked to come on board as the chairman to lead the fundraising and the charge on this in 2013. Peter came in, and I mean, Peter's Peter. Do you want to talk about a force of energy? He's got his own museum up in Oxnard, all French cars, probably the best representation of French cars in the world. Anyway, and we've grown the board now and have some, I mean, really, really one of the premier boards in the automotive world. Greg Penske, Bobby Rahal, Kent Kressa, who was the vice chairman at Chrysler and then chairman at General Motors. Richard Roeder is here with us. Michael Hammer. We've got there's so many talented people. Charlie Neerberg, a racer, one of the part of the 400-mile-an-hour club at Bonneville. I mean, on and on and on. Anyway, and Richard Varner, who is also the CEO and leader of Moto America, the Superbike, North American Superbike Championship, a rancher. I mean, there's so many great, and they're all so supportive, Dave. That's the key. Yeah. That we serve at the pleasure of the board, but I'll tell you what a great group of people, and what a wonderful opportunity day by day.
Well, it doesn't sound like you just opened the door to your basic museum. You opened the door to a who's who of the automotive world, and a pretty highly collaborative, wonderful environment. And, us patrons or guests, thank you, because when this door opens back up, we'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to flood the gates, and you're going to have to beat us back with brooms or something. I'm not sure what your crowd control is. Better hire some security, though. It'll be worse than going to a Dodger World Series game.
Music to my ears.
All right. Hey, so before we get into the news of the day, and thanks for that background. That was huge. $100 million facelift. I love it. And the building's pretty easy to find for those of you who know what the redesign looks like. Yeah, I think you'll find it. You probably could see it with a drone from many miles away. So I got to know, though, I mean, the thing that really is on my mind is, okay, so this thing called COVID happens, and before you know it, your doors are shut. So what was that experience like? I don't want to spend too much time, but it must have been a little bit breathtaking, or how did you and the board respond to that?
The one of the things that I decided when I got here was that we're going to run this museum like a business. We're a nonprofit, but we just don't want to prove that. We're going to spend what we have, not more than we have. But as I told the team when I got here, we had a crew that had been used to not having anything and not spending anything, and for 20 years nothing changed here. And so I said, look, guys, don't tell me what we can't do, and that we don't have enough people and we don't have enough money. Tell me how many people we need and how much money we need, and we'll get it. You don't worry about that. We'll get it. First thing that I did, though, honestly, and this was really one of the best decisions I've made here, was hire Dan Kahn from Kahn Media. I had seen his resume a couple of years before, and I still think he's one of the best media guys in the automotive world that I've ever met. He's on the board at SEMA. I mean, he's a hot rodder himself. He builds cars. He's got a number of really significant clients and has helped people in the automotive world forever. But the idea was, let's do something. In building the museum, the first thing we decided to do was, okay, run it like a business, but we need to create something that touches every part of car culture at least once a year. Right. So that if you are part of a slammed mini truck club, you've got a day here. If you're part of the Ferrari club, if you're a Carroll Shelby guy, whatever you do, there's something going on at the Petersen for you. So we started doing that, and that's last year, or in 19, before we closed, we ran 100 different events, and that could be from movies to panels to all the special cruise-ins. An interesting part of looking at car culture, you hear a lot about, kids aren't interested in cars anymore. We do Enzo Ferrari's birthday, you get 350 Ferraris. We'll do Carroll Shelby's birthday, get a mix of 350 Cobras and GT3 500s or 550s. And we did a tuner day. We had 2,500 cars show up.
I've seen those pictures. I was on the rooftopper, if I'm not mistaken. Incredible.
Amazing. So don't tell me that the kids aren't interested. I mean, there's no different than guys that were building Deuce Coupes or Highboy Roadsters back in the day. These are kids that are buying cars.
I go to this really impressive quarantine cruise. It's on its 13th event that was spawned by the pandemic. And what I've seen there, a lot of young people that are in their 20s and 30s, what they're doing is they're doing muscle cars, but it's a modern twist. They're taking a lot of modern tech and stuffing it into these, classic designs, 69 Camaros, 70 Chevelles, right? And, all the great muscle cars that we admire, and really just making huge performance, safety, and handling gains, and not spending so much time and energy on the paint per se. So I think that's what I see is I think this new group of people have YouTube and they can do whatever they want, and they've got this huge learning opportunity by all this content that's out there on the internet. So again, I think what this COVID situation has taught us is you've got a lot of help out there, and sometimes you just need to go to your computer or get together with your friends and go do something unusual like a cruise, right?
Well, you asked me earlier and I got off track on it on the COVID. We were fortunate and yet we've got such a great team here. When 3 weeks before the lockdown, we had met with the board in a think tank meeting about what's the future. And we had been preparing and we told them we want to go big into digital. Right. And the board unanimously said, go for it. So literally 2 days after the shutdown, we had digital tours of the museum, digital education. We started a digital cars and coffee. Then during Monterey Car Week, Pebble Week, we did a virtual car week so that almost everybody except Pebble, the lodge themselves, participated in what we were doing. Gordon was involved. The Quail was involved. We've done 18 new car intros since the shutdown because people are looking. The manufacturers have to reach people. Our intention, Dave, with the digital was to reach beyond Los Angeles and Southern California. Ironically, a year later now, 60% of our viewership is from out of the country.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you is your viewership or your attendees or your customer set changed? It sounds like it has. It sounds like it's been much more international. Your reach is probably a lot more diverse as well of your customer interest sets because you've gone digital. And fortunately, you guys were right in the middle of this plan and execution of a huge digital takeover, if you will. I made that up. You didn't say that. What timing? Very fortuitous.
A couple of instances, actually recent conversations. Have you ever talked to Jay Ward from Pixar?
No, I have not. He'd be great.
You've got to get Jay on your show.
Okay, will do. Jay Ward.
He's the guy. He's the car guy at Pixar.
Okay.
And for the Cars movies, he's the keeper of the keys. He makes sure that everything is done authentically, and they're not Mickey Mouse and things around. But Jay was telling me that he used to travel around, and he literally all over the world. He'd say I'd mentioned the Petersen, and people, oh yeah, okay, whatever. And now when he mentions the Petersen, say, oh my God, yeah, everybody knows about the Petersen, but it's because of the lockdown. Klaus Zellmer used to be the CEO at Porsche in the US. He's now head of marketing and sales for the Volkswagen brand worldwide. We were on a conference call with him a couple of weeks ago about his new job and what he's doing and how can we help or be engaged. And he said, we watch everything you guys are doing on digitally, and you guys have beaten everybody at this game. It's amazing. He said, in fact, people now say, oh, Petersen, and don't they have a museum attached?
It's secondary. That's hilarious. I'm an old marketing guy. I think I mentioned to you before we started the show. And a lot of times it's difficult to rationalize the awareness investment, right? That part of marketing.
Yeah.
Because executives are constantly saying, well, show me the metrics on that.
Right.
We've got these impressions and here's our engagement and all these soft, fuzzy metrics. And, you can see the executive eye rolls and you're like, oh boy, this is not going to work. We're not spending millions of dollars, but here it is. You did it to, right? Because you knew the world had changed and content was king, and you got to get the message out and you got to share the content. But here's this tremendous uptick in awareness for your museum. I mean, it's almost like, it's almost fortunate in some crazy way that this thing happened. That might be a strength.
You are exactly right. The fact that there's so many things that we have done at the museum, but especially and primarily the COVID shutdown gave us a world that was at home waiting for something to look at on their flat top, on the flat screen. You have a captive audience, and you're never going to have that again like that.
No, that's a good point. Everybody's supposed to be working, but we know better, right? The virtual.
But meanwhile, we've opened up. We opened up really 5 new exhibits. Why are you doing that? Nobody's here. Well, we put them up on the screen. We do virtual tours, and we're entertaining people. No other museum has done that, art or otherwise.
Well, it sounds like you guys are, making tremendous progress, raising the bar and setting some new standards for museums, for the digital age. It looks like, maybe, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like there's a break in the clouds with the COVID. And that's fantastic. I mean, all the data looks good. I'm here in Orange County, you're in LA. We've all looked at the curves and we got our fingers crossed. We're knocking on wood. We get some, we're burning some incense, right? So it looks like you're about to open up this week. This is your big opening or reopening. You got to tell us all about it. I'm so excited for you. I think everybody else is too.
Oh, thank you. One of the great parts about even the talk about reopening, and we are going to open to the public on Thursday. Today and tomorrow, we've got friends and family and members coming in as kind of a warm up, get our feet wet again. But ever since last week, when it was announced that, okay, we can reopen, there's a buzz in the building, and watching our team, which is wonderful, get things done and get things ready to reopen and do it properly, safe. We have museums that have been in here today to see how we're doing it. And I mean, the big ones sending their people over. Let's go find out what these guys are doing. So if you take a look at what we've done with digital, which is then essentially creating a whole new business model, then you look at what we're doing in June. If you'll recall, the museums were allowed to open. We said, okay, you can open. For 14 days. We were the only ones that got open. I mean, we were ready. We opened the day they said we could open it. It was unheard of.
In 2 months.
Again, the museums came over to see what we were doing. Right. There's a lot of great talent out there, and that's what I'm saying. But we've got a very young, very aggressive group that works hard 24/7 and are passionate about it. I mean, you can almost see they can't wait to get here, and then they don't want to go home.
Yeah, I never want to leave. You know, you often wonder if people sneak into the cars, into the Batman, Batman's, the Batmobile and hide
We
in
kind
there.
of frown on that.
Found a few people, So, hey, what's a guest experience going to be? How's it going to be different? We're not completely out of the woods yet, right? So I'm sure you're going to have some capacity limitations. Tell us how the guest experience changes in the COVID world, other than the obvious mask, temperature checks, social distancing, that kind of stuff.
The first and foremost, you buy a ticket online, and that will give you a 2-hour window to show up. Now, okay. Nobody's going to be chased out. You're going to stay as long as you want, but that essentially, so that we traffic we measure the flow coming in.
Okay.
Because of the COVID rules with the county, you'll be sent an email and ask you 2 health questions. Have you have a fever? Something like that.
Right.
And we ask you that at the door. Once you clear that, you come on in. The traffic will move it will be directional going through the museum, so that unlike supermarkets or malls, you don't have congestion. You'll be moving in a single direction all the way through. We start you on the 3rd floor. You work your way through the exhibits, and then go down to the 2nd floor, 1st floor, and the same thing in the vault. It's all directional. You're moving in the same direction. But we've got hand cleansers throughout. We've got everybody's in masks. We've got the shields where you're going to be talking to people. You get a stylist so that when you come in, you can push the buttons on the elevators to go up. There's any of the touch points are now shut down so that you're not, mixing with somebody else. Very well thought out, very carefully planned, and it'll be a wonderful experience. And the key is we've got 4 new exhibits that no one has seen. The James Hetfield collection. Have you seen any of that? Photos of that?
You know what? It was either before he delivered them or right after. I had read I had actually seen that video, and it's one of the most well-crafted videos I've ever seen.
Isn't that
great? He's such a down-to-earth, generous guy. So tell us about what made him decide, to give his cars to the Petersen. I mean, we're talking about the lead guitarist on Metallica, right?
Good story too. I got a call one day from a fellow, Ray Bones, his guy, and Ray said, "Hey, James is kind of done with the cars. He's built 10 of them. They're all incredible customs, and he wants people to see them. So we're thinking about sending you one." And I thought, okay, wait a minute, why would you send us one? Why would you break up the collection? And he said, well, because we want everybody to be able to see them. And I said, okay, if you'll send me all 10, if you give me all 10, if you give our museum all 10, we'll mount an exhibit that you can't even imagine what a great job we'll do with that. And when we're done with the exhibit here, we'll put it on tour around America to other art museums and car museums and make sure that it goes on forever. And James came down, toured. We spent the day walking through the museum. And then the funniest thing or the best thing that happened was that we happened to have the lowrider exhibit on when he was here. And he looked all through everything. And the last thing we did was go into the lowrider exhibit, and we're just about to leave, goes around the bend, and there's a wall with some art on it and some pictures. And there was a picture with 4 guys in it. And he's looking at the picture and he said, "Oh my God, those are my guys. Those guys did all my tats." He said, "No, this is it. This is where we belong."
It's karma.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was like a thing that if we're honoring those guys, we get who he is and what he wants to do. And the fun part was that in the gallery next to him was a Bugatti exhibit. So, I mean, it is one of those things where we're putting that art on the same level as Bugatti, and it deserves to be.
Yeah, and I think it's just as important. And one other exhibit that is either active or you just put it together. Tell us a little bit about the supercar. I think it's called a Centuries of Spectacle and Speed. I haven't seen that one, but I've heard a little bit about it. Can you just give us some insight into that?
It's not a chronological history, but it really is the history in cars of the supercar world. From Lambo Miura to Steve McQueen's XKSS, Henry Ford's Barchetta, that 52 Barchetta, an F1 McLaren, a $20 million car, F40 Ferrari, the Enzo. It goes on and on. A Maserati, all kinds of different cars. It's one of those great exhibits that you're looking at it, and it truly is the history of supercars up to the point of hypercars. And then we've got some of those downstairs as well. So
fantastic.
Great exhibit. Yeah.
Well, we could spend the whole time talking about these incredible exhibits, but we've got to leave people's imagination wide open. They got to get down there. They got to see this. They could do it online, it sounds like, but let's hopefully we can flood the gates and create a problem online for ticket sales. I'm sure that'll be the problem. You know what? It's funny. The Dodger Stadium is opening up right now as well. When, spring training is open and your timing is about the same. And I'm like, we may never get a ticket. There's a sense of, oh my God, will we be able to get in the game? Do we need to know somebody, So I don't know. I just think it's fantastic. It's palpable, the excitement, at least for me as a potential guest. And I'm sure you guys are just through the moon about this.
The buzz in the building, Dave, as I started to say, is there's a real excitement, and it's that people are back to work. It's not just that they're back to work. It's watching a great team do great work and get things done and in a professional way, quietly, and making it happen. It's this is what it's all about. It's such a joy.
Right on. Well, we're excited for you. Hey, let me take a minute and thank one of our awesome sponsors. Are you looking for a smarter way to charge your car's battery? Our friends at C-Tech lead the way in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries. C-Tech's unparalleled knowledge and continuous investment in innovation means they offer high quality, reliable chargers. They're effective, easy to use, and most importantly, safe for the user and their car's electric system. The quality of C-Tech's products make them the trusted company of the most recognizable car brands. Get yours today at smartercharger.com and type in the code SoCal, all caps, at checkout and get a 10% discount on all C-Tech products. So let's shift a little bit, sort of, but kind of go back to this digital Petersen experience. Did you have to bring in a new set of people that had expertise here, or were they already on staff and a bunch of young people were proficient in social media and content creation and then editing and then all these various platforms? How challenging was that?
We were blessed with a fellow, Michael Bodell was here. Michael's 30 now, and he was 26. And I called our chairman, Richard Varner. I said, Richard, what do you do if you got a guy that you cannot, you cut your wrist if you lose him? Yeah. He said, you do whatever it takes to keep him. So we gave him a raise and made him deputy director at 26. And perfect. The guy's got to be a genius. I mean, I got to be. He's 30 now, and now he's COO. So he's kind of running this building. But he's also a digital whiz, but so are both of his brothers. Wow. Are both in digital, and his father ran IT at LACMA for 20 years. So it's in the family. He knows what he's doing. He just did our new website himself. He didn't do it all himself. He used his brother's format and then and put our content into it. But a guy is a machine, and it was his pitch to the board that got the sign off, and then he and two other people are getting all this done. I mean, we'll do 36 garage tours this month, private garage tours just this month.
Well, that's an amazing story. And, one of the reasons why I brought that up is because I think this transition to the digital environment, it sounds like going forward, the new Petersen has got both the physical face-to-face experience and just as important is the digital experience for that depth and breadth of the rest of the world, to be honest with you. So congratulations
Thank you.
for finding some of the best talent out there in the car world.
Dave, I got to share with you, about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, Michael and I were having a coffee and he said, someday we're going to have, or somebody's going to have a digital museum. I thought, have you lost your mind? What are you talking about? And here we are.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, congratulations. And, kind of going back to some more traditional exhibits, the last time I was at your incredible museum was the opening night of the Dan Gurney race car exhibit. And Dan was,
Yep.
We got to meet Dan and he was pretty, he was pretty sharp and entertaining and hilarious. But celebrating his accomplishments, through his cars and then that presentation, I felt like for me, you brought not just the cars, but you brought his whole life, out in, live to me. And I began to really more greatly appreciate the man and his accomplishments. Is that an intentional on the part of the Petersen that with these exhibits that you're really just trying to, bring the best of the best and share the lives through the cars? Are the cars kind of the vehicle?
The story, cars connect people. I mean, and the stories connect people. With Dan, that was a real labor of love. I worked with Dan for a couple of years when we put the Toyota racing program together for him. I was on board for that, and we developed that, and really proud of that. And my time with Dan was, Dan taught me an awful lot about just conversation. I'd be saying, well, Dan, I think, and he'd look at me and said, what do you want? What's the point? Are you, is this going somewhere? Get to the point. But he was, racing with Dan was one of the most special times in my life, and I'll never forget it. But also paying tribute to Dan was one of those things where, okay, this has to happen. This next month we're going to pay tribute to Chip Ganassi. We've had Richard Petty. We had Parnelli Jones. We had Wolfgang Porsche. We had Lord March, who is now the Duke of Richmond. John Lasseter was in Patrick Dempsey. But the real heroes, the Gurneys, the Parnellis, the Richard Pettys, Ganassis. Oh my God, that it really is important that we especially do it while they're alive.
Great point.
It's one of those things where no, let's not do posthumous. That's not what we're hoping to do. Let's get this done while they're alive and really make it. And Dan was moved. That was one of the great satisfactions of all of it, is that he was really moved by it. He enjoyed it.
Well, I voted for Dan for president. So if anybody wants to know, I'm willing to admit that right here on this show.
Car and driver promo. What a great idea.
Hilarious. It's still alive today.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I'll see it out on social media.
And you know what his boys are doing? All American Racers is alive and doing more and better than they were before. They make the legs for the SpaceX rockets, the carbon fiber leg. You can't believe what these guys are doing. It's amazing.
Wow, incredible. Hey, so tell us a little bit about the vault. Honestly, I'm so intrigued about the vault. Of course, I've seen pictures and some promo videos, but there's an intrigue to it all. And there's key questions for all of us, like, how come those cars didn't make the exhibit? Did they qualify? What's it all about? So help pull back the curtain of mystery just a bit, because, you want some of that mystery, but I don't know. Every time I look down there in those pictures, I need more. I gotta do the vault tour.
The fun part about that, well, first of all, in the cars, that are there. The cars that are in the exhibits upstairs in our 11 different galleries are specifically chosen to help tell a story that exhibit is designed to do.
Right.
So unless a car fits into that narrative, it doesn't make it. It's not that it doesn't make it, but it's not necessary.
Right.
I was the second day I was here at the museum. Fellow was walking me through the vault and telling me about the cars. And at that time, there were 2 floors of cars here. The first floor was a diorama that nothing had changed in 20 years. It was a story. It was talk about a dinosaur.
It was like going to Disneyland, right? And seeing, the birds. What's that bird exhibit where, the birds, that thing has.
Oh, right. It's
70
animatronics.
years. Yeah, exactly.
The second floor had 2 big galleries, and those changed out maybe once a year. And then on the third floor was the offices of the museum and a kiddie play area that also hadn't been touched in 20 years. So we had nannies that would come up, drop the kids off, let them run around and sit at a table on their iPhones. It was a wasted floor. So anyway, my second day, I'm getting a tour, and this is Elvis's car that he famously shot, and this is this car, and here's the Henry Ford Barchetta, and here's the round door Rolls, which is the Jewel. Here's the car that Ali Khan had built and gave to his girlfriend Rita Hayworth, the Cadillac Ghia. And I'm thinking, Jesus, that there were 315 cars downstairs at the time. And I'm thinking, you got 2 floors here. The place isn't making any money. And you got 300 cars that nobody gets to see ever. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And one of the fellas that had been here before, actually handing me the keys, said, you're going to get a lot of requests for people who want to see the vault. It's a waste of your time. Don't do it. They want tours of the vault. So I challenged the team. I said, look, guys, I want to do tours down here. Let's get some people together. Let's give tours through the vault, and you just go tell them what you just told me. People, they'll blow their minds. There's so many great cars down here. We don't know about that. We can't do that. You need to paint it. You're going to have to put lighting up. You're going to do all these things. You can't really do it. I said, no, let's do it. So we made the announcement that we would open the vault for the Christmas holiday in 2012, and you couldn't get in the place. I stood up at admissions. Guys flew in from Ohio, from San Francisco. They were coming in from everywhere, saying, I've heard about the vault forever, and I've got to see it. So a big success, and it's the best moneymaker we have as a revenue producer right now.
Well, it's better than Geraldo's vault, because that was a big bust. Remember, there wasn't a hell of a lot in that vault. So talk about disappointments. This is the opposite. Vault. Sorry.
The vault has become the most famous part of the museum.
No kidding.
One, it's a mainstay, but everyone talks about the vault. But it rightfully, there's still right now 250 cars on exhibit down here, and what's there is incredible.
Wow. Well, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'll make it a point to get the vault tour ASAP. It's going to happen. It's on my bucket list. So I don't know why it hasn't happened. I'm not sure.
Come on up. I got a guy who's got a guy. We can get you.
Okay. All right. You got a guy that's got a guy. Good. Hey, let me do a shout out real fast for our other sponsor, Wicked Mobile Auto Detailing. Wicked's a luxury mobile auto detailing, paint restoration, and paint protection service right here in sunny Southern California. They specialize in high-end paint correction, self-healing ceramic, and that new graphene coating that everybody's talking about, as well as clear bra and other services. Check out their YouTube channel, Wicked Auto Detailing, and see their professionalism, perfection, and unbeatable customer service, which you can always expect from a Wicked service. Contact them at 617-901-1417 and give your car the devilish good looks it deserves. So as you've got this mission at the Petersen to engage young people. We talked a little bit about that, how, there's this sense that young people aren't into cars, and you've proven that otherwise by a lot of these cars and coffees and, events in the parking lot, whether it's around Shelby's or muscle cars, whatever it is. And the kids come out in droves. But is it purposeful? Are you making an effort to nourish these next generations of car enthusiasts to make sure that, they're engaged and they got something to get excited about?
A couple things. We've developed an education program where we bus in kids when we're open.
Okay.
We pay to bus them in, and we'll bus in about 10,000 kids on that. But we'll also go out to schools, take cars out to schools. And in 19, I think we reached 25,000 kids.
Okay.
Since we've been closed, we've reached 100,000 in virtual programming. And now that those virtual programs are offered all across the United States. The other thing, though, that we started was that we did a working with Roush. We got a Mustang and built it into a stage 3 car. So we had wheels, brakes, put a blower on it, all of the trim pieces, the aero pieces, painted it, and we had 15 students in for 12-week Saturdays, and it was amazing. 2 of the kids moved right when the program started. One to San Francisco, one to San Diego. The boy from San Francisco flew down every Saturday morning.
He did not.
So he could make the class, made all the way through. The boy from San Diego drove up 3 hours one way to get here so he could be in all the classes. This year, we've got 3 cars that we're doing. We're doing another Roush Mustang. We're doing a Jeep, and we're going to do an Audi wagon. And then actually the Jeep becomes something that we've never done before. We're going to build the Jeep, and then the kids are asked to write us a letter and tell us why that Jeep should be your first ever car, and the winner gets the car.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. So, but it's also then 15 different kids per car, and it's a really wonderful program, and it gives us a chance to do hands-on training with great high quality techs.
I think it's great because the working with your hands, it's very difficult to find those programs in public high school anymore. We all had auto shop, I think. I know I did. And, I had hunting and fishing class. I had an aviation class.
Wow.
I had all these weird classes today that would never, make the grade, right? Because you're learning skills with your hands. And
where did you go to school?
Up in Pleasant Hill, up in Northern California.
Hunting and fishing class?
Yeah, we had a hunting and fishing class.
Oh my God.
I had drafting classes. I'm like, I look back and I say, are these trades being taught anymore? And almost like, well, we can't count on the schools to do it. So it's great that your museum and you guys are focused on this next generation. We had Wayne Carini was on our show one time, and him and his partners and friends teach kids how to drive manual transmissions. So they've got a class to reach out to the community to teach kids how to drive a stick.
Yeah.
so that these classics that are stored in his garage and everybody's garage, the next generation can drive the damn things. And I thought, that's just brilliant. So I think we all have to take a big part in this, right?
We just got a Miata that we're going to use that way to teach kids how to drive a stick.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, great. Honest. That's so great. I'm so happy for you guys. And then you got that educational virtual field trip. Is that part of this program or something a little different?
We'll do all of this on video, so that all of these, each day the class will be put into a video. We'll tape it all, but the videos cover everything from, you name it, from K through 12. So there's a number of different levels of information being provided to the kids. The history of the automobile, the design, you name it. It's a great comprehensive program. But one of the real dedicated areas of our efforts.
Well, that must make you guys feel like you're making a huge difference. And thank you for doing that. I speak for all us car guys. We got to pay it forward, if you will. So, hey, I want to switch gears just a little bit. One of the things that we've talked about on some of the other shows is a concern for the future of museums. none of us really had much concern other than the usual attrition, because it is a very expensive proposition, right? And you need donors, and so it's a very challenging proposition. But I think with the pandemic and COVID in particular, it brought a lot of museums to their knees, because there went their revenue, and they probably couldn't raise sufficient funds. So what's it look like going forward? Of course, the Petersens and the LeMays and some of the biggest, finest museums in the world like yours will always be with us. But what's the future look like? Or is there somewhat of a concern for the smaller local museums in small towns? What comes of those?
It's an interesting conversation we've had. That we were having that conversation just last week. A lot of the smaller museums are private collections that have been turned into a museum, whether they're 501c3 or not. Right. They call them a museum. A lot of those will go away. One of the things that's happening right now in the collector car world right now in America, there are probably, if you take some cars that were built all the way up through the 90s, anywhere from 1 million to 2 million so-called collector cars in the world. A lot of the guys with the big collections are boomers, baby boomers, and that population is aging. Yep. And those cars are going to come on the market here in the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's probably going to overwhelm the whole system with that, putting that many cars in. When you look at private collections, so we're looking at private collections all over the country. It's staggering what these guys have put together. I mean, it's staggering.
Yeah, I have some customers that I store for that have collections above 50, and I'm, of course, I'm just the overflow department, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. The other concern that I have is, the depreciation of some of those classics, because their disposable income isn't what it used to be, their physical health isn't what it used to be, and the subsequent generations are interested in JDM or Toyota Supra turbos or things of this nature, and what they covet isn't what I covet or what you covet. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a declining interest, but yet these cars are very large, and they're like we have a 1956 Packard Caribbean convertible here, one of 10 that were made with air conditioning, and it's a flawless car. Always gets 248 out of 250 when it competes in these Packard competitions. You look at that car, and it's phenomenal from a design and a restoration standpoint. But what's the future hold for these cars? Where do they go? How do they get cared for? Those are questions. Do we know the answer, or can we only speculate?
I think that the guys covet cars when they're kids. Yep. I mean, if when I was a boy, every year when the new models came out, we were at the auto show. Dad and I grew up in Joliet, Illinois, and we'd be in Chicago at the auto show looking at all the new models. That was a big event for us. But you want the cars that you wanted when you were a boy and you couldn't afford them. Exactly. So those, the Packards and the Duesenbergs and the cars that, there will always be those very, very special cars that will be worth a lot of money.
Right.
A lot of those cars that are, let's say, maybe a little more fringe will begin to lose their value because the people who really, really wanted those cars don't want them anymore, or they're gone. You look at all the muscle cars. There's 800,000 Fox body Mustangs on the road. I mean,
still,
that's not a collector car.
No,
but it's a great car for kids because it's probably now the 5th or 6th owner. It's like when the tuner cars started to get built. Yeah. You buy a Honda Civic as the 5th owner for $1,500, and you put 10,000 into it with it, right, with a big can on the back and the wheels and all the rest of it. But I think that all of that is in a cycle, and that the industry is only about 143 years old. So there's still an awful lot that we don't know about the collecting and the value. Like I say, I think the big cars, like a blown Duesenberg or a supercharged Duesenberg, the Model J, those cars will be worth a lot of money. The issue though is how many of them, and are they all perfect?
Yeah.
Who's going to restore them is a whole nother issue.
Well, it's kind of like the Rolls
trade
problem, right? The answer is nobody can afford to restore them, and
right.
nobody has room for them. So unless Jay Leno's taking them, right? Like, where do they go?
And Miles Collier is leading the way on the not restoring, preservation.
Yeah.
Leave a car the way it was. And because for years people were over restoring them, so that they were much better than they were when they left the factory, but not truly representative of what the car was back in its day.
Well, it's an interesting time in the car community culture, if you will. And, SoCal is such a unique, place. I mean, it's kind of the birthplace of a lot of the racing and a lot of the development of cars and certainly the passion. But, what a great location for the Petersen, right? How fortuitous, if you will, for them to put it here. I'm sure that's by design. But what is it that makes this Southern California so darn special? Well, I don't ask it very often. I just thought I'd ask it of you because, you're in charge of such a, important collection of vehicles.
First of all, what a great question and timing. Yesterday, Dave, I was at a birthday party. Alex Exadiath from SoCal Speed Shop turned 99 yesterday.
No kidding.
Ed Iskandarian, who's going to be 100 on July 10th, and we'll celebrate his birthday here, was there. Ed Pink was there. Don Prudhomme, who's turning 80, was there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the who's who of hot rodding, and what was happening, and the way you look at the way speed evolves, there's almost nowhere else in the country where the weather is good enough so that you can run year round.
Right.
And if you'll recall, these guys started when they came home from the war. Exadius was running a belly tank off a P-38 fighter plane, put a V8, a flathead V8 in it, and went 200 miles an hour out of the salt in the dry lakes, and then up at Bonneville. Flat out speed was the real. Then they started running out of space and lakes. So Bob Petersen actually gave Wally Parks the money to start the NHRA.
Bob Petersen gave the money to start the NHRA. No way. Wow.
Petersen started the SEMA, put on the first SEMA show.
Didn't know that either.
But all of that was based on commerce. It was Petersen was hired by a guy named Madman Muntz to put on a car show for him. And he started talking to the guys in the industry at local, which were all hot rodders. And the guys didn't know how to advertise. So Petersen, for the pamphlet that he wanted to do, would go in, take pictures of their products, write the copy, and put it in a little book. Well, when the show was over, he's looking at this thing. He said, I might have something here, and started Hot Rod Magazine.
No, he did not.
And as these guys will tell it, they say, I used to make parts for the guy, and a guy'd walk in the store and buy something. Suddenly, this crazy guy started putting this book together, and I'm getting orders from Ohio and Connecticut, and my business ballooned overnight because of Hot Rod Magazine. But the answer to your question is because we could race year round.
Year round. Well, Lions drag strip. I think everybody's somehow connected that. It's like 2 degrees of separation, maybe 1.
Irvine Raceway. There was
Irvine Raceway, yeah.
Pomona. I mean, that it was year round. You had drag racing on the weekends at a number of drag strips, and that couldn't happen anywhere else. And so these guys got really good at it.
I grew up in Northern California, as I mentioned, and Fremont Drag Strip was my playground with my father. And, I used to beg him to take me there. So I'd have to wait for a birthday or, con him into something to take me down there. But I'll tell you what, you fell in love with everything from, the new funny cars, the field
drag. Oh my God.
All the
Altereds back in the day.
Oh man. It takes me back.
The road racers and it was the hot rodders and Gurney was a hot rodder, but they would go to the Torrey Pines road races or the Pebble Beach road races and race. They had road races where these lightweight European cars were brought over. What the hot rodders figured out was I'm going to put a bigger engine in that thing. And all those guys started working on those cars and making them fast. And out in 57, they opened Riverside Raceway. And you had guys like Max Balchowski, who built the old Yaller, and a fiberglass car with a Buick in it. And, you know, these guys had beat them in the turns, but there was a mile straightaway. Max would blow past them like they were chained to a tree.
Wow. You know what? I get a lot of different answers when I ask that question. I don't always ask it, but I think you're right. The heritage of racing is, it's kind of the birthplace. If it's not the birthplace of it all, the hot rodding scene. I've heard some people tell me a lot of it happened because when soldiers came back from World War II, they were specialists in working with their hands, whether it be welding or
exactly correct,
fabricating. Maybe they worked in the factory or maybe they worked in the war effort, and they came back and they had nothing to do. So hot rods were the answer. And there was still a lot of, Model A's and some Model T's. And then there were, all of a sudden you saw Anglias and all this other stuff and Willis. And, and people are like, okay, let's chop that up. And guys are, they had to do something to prevent themselves from going crazy. So that's what they did.
They were taught by the Army and the Air Force and how to work on things. And then you had all of this equipment. Yep. But you also had guys with skills they'd never had before, and time and money on their hands. And so personalization was what really got it going. I want to go faster.
Well, great insight. Personalization. Yeah. So one last thing I need to ask about is how critical is, how critical are individual and corporate donations to the Petersen to make it successful? I got to imagine that's such an integral part when I thought about what happened during this crisis, for whether it's a automotive museum like yours or, one of these really nice art museums. It's the same thing. I think the donors and the contributors are really so essential, especially during difficult times. Same thing true for Petersen?
In a number of different ways. Absolutely, yes. First and foremost, this past year, our board stepped up and helped us out, and we did a digital gala, and they were very supportive of that. But where we really, really do well, and this is one of the things that David Sidoric, if you remember, he's the guy that said we need to change the exterior. Right. David said we can get a lot more. We'll get a lot more people to donate cars than we'll write checks, and that's true. People are donating cars to us all the time. Not necessarily what you would call museum quality cars, but they're cars that, grandpa died or somebody had this one. And we have one of the best collections of hot rods in the world here. It is second to none. We've got, I think it's 9 amber winners. But what happens is that if a donor is, say somebody's selling a collection, and they're not getting all the money that they'd like for the hot rod on that, they'll donate the car to us and they get a tax break. If you're selling a big estate or a big collection, you're going to need some tax help. And so donating to the museum becomes something. I got a call from today from this absolutely gorgeous Bonneville car. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And the guy left it in his will that he wanted us to come here. Wow. But it was, and this is a year after he had sent us a Lola T70. I mean, it's like, whoa, that you can't believe how pretty these cars are. But donations to us are primarily, for the most part, in cars. We have a couple of guys that really are what they do is that they'll put up what they would call a matching fund. It'll match them, and then it's toward our education program.
Oh, great. Fantastic. So it's an outreach, it's education. That's great. So how, speaking of, how do folks reach out to you and or the Petersen to learn more about all the new and exciting things you got going on, or whether they want to donate cars or be part of this matching effort that you do?
Petersen.org is our website. I'm moving my thing. I just got a notice my battery's about to die on my little iPad here.
Well, we'll wrap it up.
No. We don't have to go anywhere. But I'm just going to plug in.
But you're dying.
Yeah. Petersen.org. It's Peter, all E's, PeterSEN.org. And we can help with any of the planning or any of the discussion around, any giving like that. But also go online and take a look at what the calendar is and all the events and the things that we're doing. Just that if you like cars, a great fun place to be.
Fantastic. Well, that's perfect. So I want to take a minute now and thank everybody for watching us today. And don't forget, all of our episodes are on YouTube channel, the SoCal Car Scene, all separate words. So you can see our video of our awesome guests like Terry. Please watch, follow, most importantly, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. If you prefer to listen to the show, please go to your favorite podcast platforms like Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Google Play, and the SoCal Car Storage /SoCal Car Scene page. Thanks so much for listening and watching. And Terry, I can't thank you enough. That was a great ride